Hello, and in this part 2 speaking video, I'm going to describe a time you heard someone you didn't know talking on the phone in a public place. Now I'm very confused about this topic because I've seen two part 2 questions connected with speaking on the phone. There is this one, someone you didn't know talking about on the phone, and then there's another one, a time you received a call from someone you didn't know in a public place, which is a very strange question and very hard to talk about. And so I wasn't sure what to do for this video, but I think if you get the second topic, this is what I would say because this is the truth. So I would start my answer like this. I'm afraid I have nothing to talk about for this topic as it has never happened to me. I have caller display on my phone and I never answer the phone when it is an unknown number because it is usually a spam call. However, I can talk about someone else talking on their phone in a public place. Now, it might be an either or, so both topics are there and you can choose one of them. I'm just very confused because I've seen both of them. And honestly, I could not talk about answering my phone from an unknown person in a public place because I never ever do it. And I don't think in IELTS you should be forced to talk about something that you haven't done before. So then I would go on to talk about the other topic, which is someone you didn't know talking on the phone in a public place. Now, this may be the question. Like I said, I'm just very confused. If it is the second one, then a lot of the language that I use are very useful for the part 3 questions. I just really don't know what to do with this video, and I'm going to just do my best and hope that it's the first. But if it's the second, then introduce it like this, and hopefully the examiner will allow you to go on to talk about when you heard somebody else talking on their phone in a public place, which seems a better question for this topic. So I'm going to go through that answer now. I have to say this is one of my pet hates. If you are in a restaurant, cafe, shop, wherever, you shouldn't be making or receiving phone calls. Before mobile phones were invented, we managed to live without making calls like this. So I do not understand why people need to do this. Only last week I was commuting to work by bus, and the person who was sitting next to me took out her phone and called someone. Now, don't get me wrong, if someone is ringing to tell someone when their bus arrives so they can be picked up, I don't have an issue with it. But she started talking about something that had happened to her at work, and what angered me the most was that she was using swear words and there were children on the bus. This is totally unacceptable, as it is inconsiderate and thoughtless. A lot of the other passengers started sighing and glaring at her, but this woman was oblivious and carried on talking. This is what infuriates me about people who do this. They are totally unaware of their surroundings and don't give a thought to those around them. Nowadays, some just seem to use their phone as a way of passing the time. This is so wrong. They should use their time wisely. For example, they could read a book, learn a language. There are loads of things that you could be doing rather than annoying everyone around you. It is selfish, and I would support a law that banned the use of speaking on mobile phones in public places unless it is an emergency. I doubt it would ever happen though, and there would be a public outcry if the government tried to implement it. So let's take a look at some of the language. So I've started this other topic. I'm afraid I have nothing to talk about for this topic as it has never happened to me. There may be times when there are topics that you cannot talk about, and so it's good to start with I'm afraid. So for example, if you've got the describe your grandparents' job and you don't know your grandparents, I'm afraid I have nothing to talk about for this topic because I don't have any grandparents and I never knew my grandparents, or my grandparents have recently died and it's a sensitive topic for me. you can't change the topic for no reason, but if it's really something that you could not talk about because you might get upset or you absolutely have nothing to say, then it's worth trying with the I'm afraid I have nothing to talk about. But here we're going on to give some reasons why. So I have caller display. This is when the number appears on your phone. And so if it's an unknown number, so a number that's not in your contact list, it's an unknown number. It's a spam call. A spam call is when people are phoning you and usually trying to sell you something. So then I'm going to go on to talk about the other topic, which I hope it is, which is somebody talking on their mobile phone loudly in a public place. This is one of my pet hates. Very useful little phrase. Your pet hate is something you really dislike. So my pet hate is smoking. It's people talking on their phones in public places, things that you really, really hate. We call them pet hates. When you're doing a list of places and then you get to the end of the list, instead of saying and so on, you could say wherever. Before mobile phones were invented, so using the passive here, you can adapt this answer if you get the other question and you do have an occasion when you spoke on your mobile phone. You can use a lot of this language and include it. I was commuting to work, so if you are talking about it, and when you took a call, you might say I was commuting to work using the past continuous. To commute means to travel to a place of work that's a distance from your home. The person who is sitting next to me, another good use of past continuous here. Now, don't get me wrong, is when you're going to say something that maybe contradicts the other things, that is different to the other things that you have said. I don't have an issue with it. I don't have a problem with it. Had happened, using past perfect because it's something that had happened before this event in the past. What angered me? What annoyed me? What infuriated me? So useful little construction. She was using swear words, bad words. Totally unacceptable. Not good. Inconsiderate and thoughtless. These are very similar words and they both mean thoughtless. So not giving any care or thought to other people. Inconsiderate and thoughtless. So if you're talking about taking a call or hearing somebody take a call on a bus, then we can refer to the passengers. They started sighing. So even if you're talking about yourself, if you feel comfortable talking about yourself receiving a call in a public place, you can say these same sentences. All of the other passengers started sighing and glaring at me. So to sigh is to go... And it's an expression when you are annoyed, frustrated by someone or something. To glare at means like to stare at, to look at in an angry way. If you're oblivious to something, you do not realise it. You just are not aware of what is happening. And she carried on talking. She continued talking. Infuriate is a very good word. You can use it in IELTS writing. For example, if you were talking about the environment and getting infuriated about the number of cars on the road, for example. Infuriate, the verb to infuriate, means to make you very, very angry. They're totally unaware of their surroundings, so they're oblivious. They're not caring what is going on around them. Here, those and some. Instead of saying those people, some people, we can drop the people and just refer to those around them. Some just seem. And if you can do this, the IELTS examiner will notice this and think, that's good. To pass the time means to do an activity to make the time go more quickly. So when you're on a bus, people use their phones to pass the time. To use their time wisely, good collocation, to do something useful in that time. You could be doing, so what could you be doing? You could be learning a language, you could be reading a book. It's selfish, you're only thinking of yourself. I would support a law, another good collocation. I doubt, meaning I don't think it will ever happen though. A public outcry. This means when the general public are very angry about something and they voice their anger. They say this is not acceptable, so they do it on social media or they do it in protests. Very useful for IELTS writing as well as speaking, a public outcry if the government tried to implement it. So for example, in a IELTS writing task 2 conclusion, if you're saying in order to solve many environmental problems, the number of cars on the road should be reduced. However, there would be a public outcry if the government tried to implement it. So very useful for conclusions. So let's take a look at some part 3 questions connected to this topic. So whichever topic it is, whether it's about you receiving a call in public or whether it's about hearing somebody else take a call in public, the question you are likely to be asked is this one. Do you think we should have laws prohibiting speaking loudly in public? To prohibit means to ban. Oh, absolutely. In some countries, such as Korea, I think, it is frowned upon, but in my country, there is no such rule or cultural norm, and there are some who are excessively loud in public. I am not entirely sure how such a law would be implemented though, and it would be very hard to enforce. So if you're asked, do you think, and it's something you feel strongly about, oh, absolutely. Or if you disagree, oh, absolutely not. In some countries, such as Korea, it is frowned upon. This doesn't mean it's illegal. It just means people don't like it. And if you do it, people are annoyed or upset with you. But in my country, there's no such rule or cultural norm. Cultural norms are things that we usually do in a culture. So the cultural norm in the UK is to drink tea when you wake up in the morning. And this is a cultural norm. So there is no cultural norm like in Korea where speaking loudly in public is not a good thing. In the UK, people do it and we accept it. And there are some, again, we drop the people, who are excessively loud. This means too loud in public. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know how it would be implemented, and it would be very hard to enforce. So sometimes you have a law, but it's hard to enforce. It's hard to get people to obey the law, and we don't have enough police in the UK to enforce a lot of our laws, so people break laws. So even if you had this law, it would be hard for the police to enforce it and do anything about it. So that's what I'm saying here. So sorry, this is a bit of a messed up topic because of some confusion over which one it is, but whichever topic it is, you have so much language in this video that you can use, such as caller display, a spam call, an unknown number, cultural norms, it's frowned upon, excessively loud, I was commuting, passengers, lot of vocabulary, so you can just learn that vocabulary and use that for whichever topic it is. Thank you for watching.